Hey guys, welcome back, Multicraft Mom. I made today a burlap wreath. I call it an all-season wreath. You can put it up on the wall and decorate it as you need to. And so today I'd like to show you how I do that. And this is the wreath that I made today. And this one is a 3-ribbon wreath. And you can customize it for any holiday or any occasion. So go ahead, stick around and watch the video, and I'll show you exactly how to do this. All right, so what I have here is kind of a cheater ring. Instead of using an actual wreath form, which you absolutely can use, I am recycling an old tomato cage. So this is the largest round of an old tomato cage, and it will work just fine. Just be careful, because sometimes you do get little sharp pieces. They will end up buried in the wreath, but be careful while you're working. And we're going to set it aside for now. What I'm using is some burlap wreath. Always use a wired wreath, and that way you can decide exactly how you want your flips to be as you do it. So I also chose this white with some white lace within the burlap, just to give it a little bit of accent color. And I use these zip ties to attach the ribbon to the wreath form. And this makes a really nice puffy wreath. Now on a wreath this size, I am just using 3 ribbons. On the one I have in my kitchen, it's quite large. I used 4 ribbon. So I like to choose 2 3-inch ribbons. And I'm gonna go ahead and put the white on the inside in between the two. So I'll just sandwich him in there. I'm going to take my wreath form, and I'll just go ahead and choose any starting point. Say here. So I'm just going to pinch the end, and I will take my zip tie, pop it through, and give it a little tug. Now, I'm not going to fully tighten it because I want to be able to slide it around. So I'm just going to slide that down to the nub right in here. Okay. Now this is where you'll decide the size of the loop that you want and how puffy you want it. So just give it a little fold and a pinch, and just kind of look at it. I will tend to use, my 4 fingers as a guide for most wreaths. Again, if I'm doing a very large wreath and I want it super full, I'll make them longer. So I've made a pinch, and I'll just go ahead and zip tie again. What's great about these being burlap, as I mentioned, they turn into a really good all-season wreath. And so what I'll do is, I bought some artificial fruit from Joanne, and down, you get the floral aisle or things like that. So I'll buy some artificial fruits and kind of pop those onto it for the off seasons, and then I will adorn it with things during the holiday season. So maybe I'll put some holly berries and things like that. I think actually this Christmas I put an elf on it and some battery operated lights. So just whatever your decor is, you can go ahead and add to it. And Halloween, I know I definitely put a witch's hat in there. So, and then we'll just keep going. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to pop this wreath out, and you guys can just sit back and watch. Just a side note, after you have tightened these, try to flip the long portion of your zip tie toward the inside. It will make it easier later on to, after you've done your fluffing and stuff, you'll want to clip those off, and they will get buried within the ribbon. All right. So I've just thrown all the ribbons off the desk, and that is just so that it'll stop rolling around on me and I can just give it a tug as I go. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of a roll. So what I'm going to do is grab another roll of the same ribbon. Okay, well, it turns out I have made the cardinal error, and I only picked up one roll of the lace. So there you go. That's what happens if you don't get enough. So because I don't have enough of it to go around, I'll save this for another project. I'm just going to clip these real quick, and then I will have to start over. This is another reason why you don't want to make them too tight at first. Okay, so here we are back at square one. So I'm just gonna take this little guy out. Take this guy out. And I'll roll that back up, and I will save it for another project. And I know I have enough of these, so I will get it going again with this ribbon. So again, it's a nice wire edged ribbon. I'll set one aside because I know I'm going to need it. And I'll just start putting these zip ties on. Again, turning the ends in so that they're easier to access later. I find the burlap to be a little more difficult to work with than, say, the decorative wire ribbon that you get at Christmas time. The burlap is definitely a lot more stiff, so it's a little bit harder to control your loops and keep it even. Okay, so it looks like maybe my loops are getting a little shorter, so I'm just gonna pull this one in and make sure that every now and then maybe just check to make sure you're not getting too small. So this one is small, this one's a little small, so I'll just go ahead and adjust now to be a little bit bigger, just to get it back on track. So I'm getting to be now too big, so I'm doing the opposite. So I'm just going to tighten this one up a little bit. So we're getting close to the end of this wreath, we might have enough to finish, but we might not. And if we don't, that's okay because we have another roll. So as we get closer to the end of the wreath, you want to kind of pause a little bit and make sure that your loops aren't so tight together that you won't be able to, puff them up and separate them nicely. So if you need to give yourself a little space, this is when you want to do it before you finish up your round. Though you can always cut a few off if you needed to. So I think I'm going to have enough of that, but if I didn't, maybe, I don't know, but if I didn't have enough, all you would do is take this end, and you would take the fresh end of this, and you would, maybe not even this end, if your last loop ended here and that's all you had left, you would just start your new piece right here and loop it in together with that end. And then you just keep going. You can snip this off with your scissors and just keep on going. And I'm running out of this one, so this I'm going to make my last loop. I want to make sure I get that end in there. I'm not going to cut this off just yet because if I fluff it and I find that there's not enough, then I will probably want to add a couple more loops. Actually looking like it's definitely going to be enough. So you can use these tails to make a loop for hanging, or if you want some tails for decor. So I tend to cut them off, but that's completely up to you and your personal choice. So now what we do is we start fluffing. This is the part where you just take them and you separate. So we'll pull them apart, and I like to give a little twist just to make sure that they're all in different directions. You don't want to get that middle piece in the middle every time. You want to sometimes have it at the bottom. Sometimes at the top. So these ones were a little bit shorter. So this was a longer puff. These ones is where I think I said I had gone a little bit short. So they are a little bit harder to separate when they're too short. So don't worry about whether or not you can see your stuff right now, because we'll take care of that in a minute once we tighten everything up. So we're almost finished fluffing. Okay, so I can see I definitely have enough. So I'm just going to slide them around a little bit to even out the density. So in this case, I'm just going to cut this off because I don't want to have any tails. I don't think I want to use it as a hanger. But if I did, that's where it would come from. So we'll flip it over. little adjustments that we need to do here, like this. So now I'll just pick a starting point. Might as well start at my knot, and I'll just go through and pull and make sure that they are snug. All right, so now we just go ahead and clip the ends. Okay. So now that I've gone all the way around and I've clipped off each piece, they are a little sharp. So what I do is I now use my thumb carefully, and I like to turn them, and you'll be able to feel which way they want to go. All right, so let's flip this guy over. I'm just going to refluff anything that might have flattened out a bit. Just fix anything that needs fixing. Fluff anything that needs fluffing. We definitely want to make sure we're hiding our knot. So we'll fluff this over top. You'll know if it gets backwards if it starts getting hard to flip. You'll see that, when you can see that there's a ribbon over the back of it, then you know something's not right. And burlap is great for all season because it just kind of blends with everything. So it will be easy to add and remove things to it. Now, where we did have a section that was a little bit tighter and some that were looser, the folds were larger, so you have a little bit more room to work with these, which are the kind that I like, but I should have been a little bit more careful. So we have some that are a little more tight and some that are a little loose, but if you even it out, one will make a great, put it at the top or the bottom, and if you put them on opposite sides, it really does balance out in the long run. So there we have it. We have our all season wreath. I'll show you the one that I have in my kitchen, and so I like to put fruits and things like that on there, and you can fluff it as you like, and yeah, so it's quite simple, and I hope that you give it a shot. If you do give it a try, I'd love to see it. So if you go to my website, www.multicraftmom.com, on that website we'll have links to my Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all of those. So if you pick whichever platform it is that you like to use, go ahead and stick something on there, and I'd love to see it. And again, it feels good to be able to make something homemade that you did yourself. It was so simple, and we recycled an old tomato cage at the same time. So yeah, so there we have it. That's how I make my ribbon wreath. Okay.